Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Andy Yates and Peter O'Brien from Artelo Biosciences. Artelo Biosciences is a clinical stage company that uses cutting edge science to improve patient care. They were founded in 2017 on the promise of therapeutic development based on lipid-signaling modification, including the targeting the receptors of the endocannabinoid system. How are we keeping today, gentlemen? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Owen.
And thanks for inviting us on.
Delighted to have you on the show. So I'm going to break the questions into two different sections. So Andrew, I'm going to start with you with a lot of medical questions first and foremost. Can you maybe give everybody a quick overview of exactly the ambitions and aims of Artelo Biosciences, please?
Absolutely. Well, we recognized quite a while ago that the endocannabinoid system, which is a series of lipids that the body makes, has an influence in so many diseases and disease states within the human body that we felt that there was a great untapped potential there. So we took a sort of classic pharmaceutical or biotech approach and narrowed down on some approaches where we could directly and indirectly affect the endocannabinoid system in a number of diseases. So as you said, we're a clinical stage company. We've got one asset in the clinic right now in anorexia associated with cancer. So that's a synthetic cannabinoid which hits the receptors that we would know plant-derived cannabinoids can hit. We've got another compound which is heading towards the clinic either late next year or early 2024. That's targeting something called chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, which is a very painful condition for cancer patients that undergo chemotherapy. That's a molecule, again, synthetic, which affects a protein in the body which helps transport the endocannabinoids around. And by affecting that, we can attenuate the natural tone of the body's endocannabinoids. And the final program we have, which is in preclinical development, is taking a cannabinoid made by the plant called CBD or cannabidiol, which is really good when you can get it into the body and work. There's plenty of clinical studies to show its effects in a multitude of diseases, but it's not a very good drug. It's not a very good medicine. So what we've done there is taken the opportunity to combine it with another chemical substance which sort of turbocharges the CBD and allows it to be given orally in a sort of pill or capsule format versus currently where you have to give it in a liquid format. And that just helps it get into the body a little easier. And then when it's in the body, it can get on and do its job.
Okay, incredible. So for everybody that's not understanding, so if you could explain what are the CB1 and CB2 receptors for everybody, please.
Absolutely. So a lot of biology relies on receptors. The way I was taught receptors and the way I still see receptors is that they are the lock. And obviously you want to either open or close that lock. And in order to do that, you need keys. So CB1 receptor is a lock that is mainly located or was originally thought to be mainly located in the brain. But subsequent to that, you actually find a lot of CB1 receptors located in organs within the body. That's very important for our lead compound. And CB2 receptors, again, they were originally called the peripheral cannabinoid receptor, i.e. they occurred in areas of the body that were not associated with the brain. There is some evidence that CB2 does exist in the brain. But again, we see that mainly as a body receptor, if you wish. And we've got within our portfolio a molecule that, if you wish, is the key and can turn that lock at both the CB1 and the CB2 receptor. And that's the compound that we're developing currently in anorexia associated with cancer, where obviously patients lose a lot of body weight. And we actually believe that both of those receptors are very important in the effects that we will get and are seeing from that drug.
Okay, brilliant. And can you maybe explain what the benefits of modulating lipid signaling pathways are?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, cannabinoids or the endocannabinoids that we make in our own body are a lipid molecule. So lipid means fat. So they're based on fats, and they have a little modification that makes them target these CB1 and CB2 receptors that we've already talked about. So at a very simple level, lipid modification means that we're able to alter the balance of those lipids, those endocannabinoids, and get the cannabinoid effects from that approach. The molecule that we have, which is I talked about being used for chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, that targets a protein in the body called fatty acid binding protein, or FABP. As the name suggests, it moves fatty acids around, and fatty acids are lipids. So what we know with that molecule is that not only does it affect the endocannabinoid tone, which is cannabinoid based, but it also affects other lipids. And lipid signaling is, I guess, a new frontier in biology and science. So people may have heard of genomics and proteomics, which is the study of genetics and proteins. Well, we're looking at lipidomics, and lipidomics is the study of lipids within the cell. And if you can modify lipids in the cell, then you can modify diseases.
Okay, incredible. So as you mentioned that CBD is a great molecule, but necessarily not the best molecule on its own to be able to provide any relief for a patient. Are blends and formulations now the key to the medical side of the cannabis industry moving forward?
That's a great question. That is one of the approaches being taken, I guess, by some of our competitors and those that are in the, I'll call it, unlicensed cannabinoid space. So they're using unlicensed medicines, simply because at the moment there aren't that many licensed medicines. So it's not like a bad approach, it's just a different approach. They definitely are using formulations and blends as their way of optimizing what the plant can do. We've taken a different approach, which says we believe the active molecule in the plant, or one of the active molecules in the plant, is CBD. And just like we've talked about before, CBD is a fatty lipid-like molecule. And for any one of your viewers who's ever washed the roasting pan or the frying pan after some food, you realize obviously that fats and waters don't mix. And we've got exactly the same problem with CBD. When you take CBD and you take it into your stomach, the first thing it hits is the stomach juices, and they are made of water. So it doesn't dissolve very well. And from then on in, you've got a bit of a problem getting the CBD across the gut wall and into the blood and plasma where it can do its job. And what we've done is we've formed a co-crystal of CBD. So that's where we've combined it with another chemical called TMP, which is a food ingredient. And what it does is it stacks the CBD in a very orderly way. I think of Lego blocks here. Yellow block representing CBD, red block representing TMP, and it goes yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red. And by doing that, what you've done is broken up the very fatty, non-penetrating environment of the fatty CBD, and you've given it a chance to interact with the water in the stomach and start to dissolve. And once you've dissolved CBD, then you're on a good pathway forward to get that CBD into your blood, where it can go off and do many of the different things that CBD is from the literature known to do, such as pain relief, helping with sleep and anxiety and stress, lowering inflammation, etc.
Okay, brilliant, Peter. Now I want to ask you a few business questions. Do you see all of the top companies in this space coming from North America at the moment, or is there you're starting to see movement in Europe? Because we really have a lot of the top pharmaceutical companies based, whether it's in Malta or in Ireland. So are we slow to catch up, or North America just too far ahead of us at the moment?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Owen. I suppose I often think of where we're based on Fitzwilliam Square in Dublin too, as being it's notorious for being the aircraft leasing square of the world. So apparently 70% of aircrafts are leased from Fitzwilliam Square. But when you look at the square, it also has a very strong representation when it comes to companies in our space, unusually strong, I would say. So GW Pharma, who would be, I suppose, one of the companies that we would have looked to when we started pioneering in this area. GW were bought out, I believe, 2 years ago for, I believe, 7.6 billion by Jazz Pharma. And so Jazz Pharma, a couple of doors down, GW were as well, Satis Pharma and some of the other companies. So Tilray apparently is around the corner as well. So there's quite a nice mix, and it's interesting to see that they're all on our doorstep. Interestingly enough, one of our programs is with Trinity College in Dublin, and they have a newsletter, and a lot of the alumni get this newsletter. So I often get WhatsApp or LinkedIn messages referring to any news that is put out in Trinity. So look, it's a very small space. There's not many companies globally in this arena, and so it's certainly one to watch.
Yes, very much so. And do you think that's the high capital cost initially, and intensive capital to start, and the expertise that's required, that basically is a hindrance to a lot of companies putting their foot in this?
Yeah, I suppose, look, when I'm not as involved in the company as much as Andy is these days, but I do look after the investor relations for Europe, and Greg and Andy will be at the forefront of the company, and Professor Saoirse O'Sullivan. So Professor Saoirse O'Sullivan is a Clontarf native, so also a Dublin girl and ex-Trinity, and obviously Andy is just across the water. So when myself and Greg formed this company, we asked, many people who were the best people in this area, this arena, and we were Andy's name was brought up a couple of times. So thankfully he came on board. So I suppose, look, since 2017, we've been building the board clinically very strong in Europe and in America, and the board in the US has always been very strong. So we work with various universities, and what I would say is that we identified our competition when we started. We were never going to go into growing cannabis and going down that route. What we wanted, a pharmaceutical company, and to focus on the triggers of the endocannabinoid system. So we differentiate ourselves immediately from the very start, which helped us. We felt absolutely, I suppose Greg would have 30 years experience with pharma companies in North America, and Connie Matsui is our chairwoman, and she's head of has been head of many big, large public companies. Hadelzheim is one where she was chairperson for a couple of years. And so we knew the costs involved, and we wanted to set it up so we could deliver. We, as Andy touched on, what we wanted to do was, we knew people weren't going to be able to get the right doses of, if they drank 10 bottles of CBD a day, I'm sure it would affect their liver and kidneys and everything else. So from the outset, we felt getting our programs to be able to be prescribed was the way to go. And it's a longer road, it's a far more expensive road, but we haven't changed from that. And all the management decisions have been with a view to FDA approval, which is obviously our co-crystal, and co-crystals have been FDA approved before. So we've stuck to a pretty a pretty tight guideline and a mandate.
We've been very disciplined, and we actually benefit from the best of all worlds. As Peter alluded to, we're listed on the NASDAQ, and we've got a North American biotech, very strong management team and board. We've got our Irish operations, which is fantastic because Trinity College, with the expertise there, we're really tapping into both preclinically. So we've got preclinical work ongoing, but also the clinical study, and we hope to engage more sites in Ireland. And then from a UK perspective, I'm sat here today in the ex-AstraZeneca R&D facilities, and we can tap into world-class research here on our door, drug development actually research on our doorstep, and benefit from a fantastic R&D credit environment which the UK has put in place, which allows us to do the best research at the lowest cost base.
Incredible. We've nearly hit our time already. It's flown by. I have one quick question left. Andrew, you might be able to answer this one. From start to finish, what's the rough time scale that it takes you to go from highlighting a potential drug that you can make and going through all the various trials? Is it 1 year, 5 years?
To take it through a trial will take between 1 to 2 years, but you may need more than one trial. It also, obvious, but it depends on where you start from. So with our lead clinical compound, we actually licensed that compound from AstraZeneca. So obviously a world-known pharmaceutical company. So they actually already spent 4 or 5 years researching this drug. It didn't work for what they wanted it to work in, but we saw a different opportunity there. So I would say sort of start to finish, you're looking at a sort of 5-year development timeline, and we're in, well into that. For drugs that are more in the sort of preclinical space, which is our fatty acid binding protein inhibitor, we've actually already had 4 or 5 years worth of research in that from our partner at Stony Brook University. And we're now taking it on its journey into the clinic. And again, you could probably expect about 4 to 5 years in the clinic before it could become a registered drug. Same for the co-crystal.
Well, gentlemen, the time is up already, but I think Artelo Biosciences is one of the top companies that I've found in this space around the world. And I think the next 5 to 10 years is going to be very exciting to see all the IP that come out of this industry and all the benefit that can be created for patients from all the hard work you guys are doing.
Well, I really appreciate your time and appreciate the invite to come and speak to you and your listeners.
It's very much appreciated. Hope we can chat to you guys again maybe at the start of 2023 and see how far along the line we are with the process you guys are doing. For anybody who wants to know more about Artelo Biosciences, the website is below. All the links will be posted in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this. But for now, Peter and Andrew, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next episode, guys.